Welcome back to the Riftlab Trials 2. We've got the grand finals coming up here on Championship Friday, which is not normally what we say, but it is Championship Friday today. I'm Casanova, joined by Blevins and Silent Knight on either side of me. Guys, grand finals coming up. It's a Kaisa mirror, but what are we looking at immediately for you guys? The excitement levels for us finally crowning a champion here at the Riftlab Trials.
Yeah, give me...
Well, it's been...
We did it again. We did it last time. It's just going to keep happening. I'll let you take this one, Silent.
No worries. Thank you for that. But yeah,
we've been seeing
a lot of... Exactly. We've been seeing a lot of competition over these past few days. We've been seeing how wide this meta is. But even with that, the Kaisas have been able to win out. And no other than Prismaticism, just a great competitor who has been able to make it to the finals. And man, all of this time that we've been able to put in as competitors, as players, and now here we go to the finals. And with that, here is the top cut bracket.
Yeah, Blev, break it down for me on this top cut bracket.
Yeah, we saw on the Turnham Sideways B stream, we saw Prismat versus Presto, one of the best matches that we've seen in Riftbound so far. We just saw Prismat versus Lasco Luna last in the last match. Absolutely masterclass play from Prismaticism. We saw a bluff attack, which, as if you know me at all, that's one of my favorite things in the world. Now we got Prismat in the finals. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see the hero Annie take down the Kaisa villain. It was WasianSwag taken down, sold out as Annie in the last match, and now we are here in the finals. It's Kaisa v Kaisa.
Well, look, Prismat has made it to another finals of some of the biggest of the online tournaments, right? The Luxury Gaming 1K Prismaticism was able to make it all the way there as well. And now the Riftlab Trials, he's able to make it to the finals with a different deck, Kaisa this time. And this is what they're playing for. This is what it's all the marbles. You get the custom 1-of-1 playmat. First place gets the gold one. Second, with the silver, you're going to get a Champion's Journal coming in from those Codex journals, which are gorgeous for both first and second. They've already locked theirs in. They're going to get the website borders, and everyone who had made the top 4 is going to get the digital edition of that Codex Journal. But there is so much to play for. It is the fun, kind of casual nature of these online tournaments. But at the end of the day, you get this really cool physical object to commemorate that, hey, you were the best at the game before the game was out in the West.
Yeah, I mean, Cass, we've worked together for a long time. We had some ideas brewing with other projects we wanted to do a cool physical gift for a tournament prize. Like, it is one of the coolest things in my mind. Like, yeah, money's great, but you can get that. You can go to work and get money. You can't go to work and get a custom 1-on-1 gold Riftlab winner playmat. It's just not possible.
All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the deck list for our two competitors. We're going to send this off to Silent Knight, start to break down a little bit of some of the differences that we'll see. So kick me off with Prismaticism, Silent. What have we got here that you've seen really stand out for Priz in their version of Kaisa?
Well, Prismaticism does a very good job at calculating. He is able to go ahead and look at what is presented, see what potentially his opponent could have, and then be able to decide from there on what course of action is best to take. He is just a god player when it comes to really whatever deck you want to give him. So with this, I mean, he is able just to play things so efficiently. He does have things like Noxus Hopeful to where he can go ahead and hit the ground running extremely fast. Turn 2, he has a lot of removal with Void Seeker and Falling Star. And so it's going to be a wait and see on what he can potentially draw to get this game going in his favor. All
right, let's take it over to WasianSwag's version of Kaisa. Let's note the differences. I think immediately, though, Blevins, it's the battlefields that have the biggest difference, and then the sideboard. A lot more 1 and 2-ofs for WasianSwag.
Yeah, a lot more 1 and 2-ofs. Also, a pretty big 1-of in the main deck. That's Mundo, and Mundo goes where he pleases. This is maybe not the matchup that Mundo was originally made for. You know, we saw it in the Chinese regional events a few weeks ago, sort of come out as an answer to Aurora decks and to the Master Yi decks, but it serves a similar function. If you can get the board state leveled out, if you can find an opening to land that Dr. Mundo, especially in the game one with the Zon Warrens fueling him. It is really hard for any deck, let alone Kai'Sa, to actually deal with that Dr. Mundo once he gets to that, 15, 20 might. It's almost impossible to kill him.
Yeah, and from there, I mean, this was the big thing that we saw out of Wasian in some of the earlier games, is you mentioned starting with the Zon Warrens, and generally, when I see Mundo main deck, I think game 1 Warrens has to be the case. But in this last series against Sold, did not start with the Warrens, and in fact finished the final game playing around the Warrens. And I'm curious if that was just tech for the Annie matchup to not give her a double Warrens game 1, or if there was consideration to this deck build with the second Mundo in the board, that sometimes you're waiting until game 3 and playing 2 Mundo in certain matchups. I wonder what that selection will be for our game 1 for this mirror, and I think that will be very telling of how that series will start to go, whether maybe we get a game 2 Zon Warrens for double Mundo, as we are going to get right into game here. Prismaticism versus WasianSwag for the grand finals of Riftlab Trials 2.
And again, this mulligan is going to be a very big tell as well. Not only with the battlefields, which have not been really revealed yet, but the mulligans are going to be big, because that can really help set the tempo as to who's going to be able to get the advantage. And not only that, we're still discovering on who's going to be going first in this case as well, which can also be a pretty big difference maker.
Okay, no Warrens game 1. We've got Reavers and Targon's Peak.
Yeah, Reaver and Targon's going to set things up. I mean, both sides can use each of these battlefields equitably, right? This is 2 places where neither player is going to get the advantage. Both of them have the units that you want to play on Reavers. Both of them are playing Kai'Sa, so they can use Targon's Peak very efficiently, right? So this is a big thing. We do see the Mundo kept
I was gonna
in
say.
the mulligan, Blev. That is very interesting when it's not a Zon Warrens game.
Not as on Warren's game, and also, I mean, just cost 8. That is a calculated decision. You do not keep an 8 drop in your opener when you have the ability to mulligan it away, unless you absolutely know that it is pivotal to the matchup and to your game plan in the matchup, and that is clearly a tell. Obviously, only to us, because Prismat does not know how the mulligan went, but that is a very, very interesting keep there with the Mundo in the opener.
And then just like that, you are seeing the Hextech Ray coming out as well, looking like going to be blasting back that unit to stop a point from being gained. And we saw this happen in the last round as well, when me and Blevins were casting on playing out that early removal to really help slow your opponent down. But again, you are giving your opponent another card.
Yeah, I think the big turning point on deciding whether or not to do that is going to be this Targon's Peak. One of the best things that Kai'Sa gets to do is go take Peak, spend all of her resources to play out a unit, and then get those 2 runes back to prevent you from going and conquering anything. And so that does make that Ray worth not only the unit that you've cleared, but also worth 2 runes. You've tapped out 2 runes from the Kai'Sa player by doing this. So I like it a lot more in that scenario when the battlefield is specifically playing around Targon's Peak.
So here we go. Thinking about potentially what to do next. Both competitors, should be noted, also have a Darius and a Cleave, which can be a very big difference maker. And something that you usually can see a lot is maybe like playing the Darius out, and then on the following turn, the Darius takes out the Darius. But I mean, just the Darius Cleave is one of the strongest combos that you can have in this game, especially when there is going to be so much trading in the Kai'Sa v Kai'Sa mirror match.
Yeah, and Kai'Sa, there's a couple lines of play here. I mean, I like this one a lot from Prismat here, developing the Kai'Sa, getting the card, developing the Kai'Sa on Reavers, of course, really quite strong. It is a bit soft to Voidseeker, which we, of course, see in Wasian's hand, but very strong. I was considering potentially falling starring the Kai'Sa and then just playing a Noxus Hopeful, but Prismat ends up going with the Kai'Sa, getting that card in, and cashing the Kai'Sa in early.
Yeah, I think there's some consideration to hoping that you'll see a Stupefy off of one of these draws as another way to increase the value of this falling star. You don't really want to ever double target Falling Star into just a Kaisa Survivor.
Right.
You will, but you don't want to. If there's another line that you can take, you'll try and avoid doing it. And so we do see that that is kind of the case. And I really love the acceleration of the Kaisa into Reaver's Row when you've taken Targon's Peak. So you're not actually tapping out. Once again, it all kind of revolves around this battlefield and how you're able to tap out fully on your runes because you know you'll have 2 back to threaten certain answers. Now, Kaisa doesn't really have a great answer to that Void Seeker unless there was specifically a retreat, and that was not there for Prismat in this spot.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing too here, playing around Reaver's Row, because that just gives you that little extra buffer where it's like, yes, if I go ahead and attack in, my opponent is going to back out, potentially at least, and be able to fight another day. So this removal is almost going to even get a little bit of an increase in value as you go ahead and debate on maybe what course of action you're taking here to be able to deal with these board states. I mean, we're seeing, though, 2 falling stars on Prismaticism's side and WasianSwag having 1 as well. That can be a devastating blow, especially in a momentum shift.
This is where it's very valuable to actually have these Pouty Poros as kind of an anti-Kaisa measure. Because normally it feels like Falling Star is kind of nice to be able to deal with some of these backline units, but when you actually fall behind so significantly in runes in the mirror matchup, it does lead to these incremental advantages, and with Wasian already having the board lead, it's creating some very difficult questions for Priz, and you can see him kind of tanking on this turn a little bit. There's not a super clear line, especially considering that while generally this would be a Darius line, this is Reaver's Row. That's not going to work.
Yeah, Darius looks really bad because of Reaver's Row. It also just, like, you just are opened up to your opponent Dariusing you, and then if that's the case, we look at Priz's hand, what in the world else are they going to do to come back? If their Darius gets Darius, you kind of need to wait. No, that's a word. Look it up.
Yeah,
you kind of need to wait and hope that your opponent, blinks first, and then you're able to get the most value out of the Darius in this case, or potentially the Thousand-Tailed Watcher. Playing a bit of Darius chicken. Again, that's a real game. Look it up, and hope that you can end up being the one that kills their Darius with yours, or even your Watcher.
So right now we're seeing some really interesting plays, trying to get those points to get a little bit of advantage at least on the board, but still going to be going ahead and playing a Darius and a Student here to try to build up the backfield and seeing what is going to be thrown. Now that Poro is pretty much gone at this point. Could back up if they don't want to use the spell to remove it, but still they have the Noxus to be able to try to get in there. So again, though, this is going to be the back and forth that we're going to be seeing with this kind of matchup. And again, these calculations and deciding the best course of action can be that big difference maker on securing not only these games, but this match as a whole.
And this is where these Falling Stars really come into play for Prismaticism. I mentioned that they didn't really want to expend that to double cast into a Kaisa if they had a better option. And last turn, they didn't have a better option, so they're forced to expend that resource. But they drew another copy of Falling Star, and now they have the ability to take care of Darius before it even gets to swing in and get a single point for Wasian, which is a lot of value for your 2 energy card. And from there, the question becomes, what else can you do on this turn? We see the Darius slam down. There's the Falling Star. Double tap the Darius. And now you can look to start earning a lot more points. Go towards go from 2 to 4 to 6 to 8 to look to end the game, especially with a Fox in hand. So I think Blevins was muted for most of that, unfortunately. But we are getting into another attack in from WasianSwag. Basically, he was just talking about how there was a tell that WasianSwag had not readied his Darius and sent it into Targon's. And Priz can read that as potentially not having any spells to kind of counteract what Priz could do. But we're going to continue on here. The cleave comes through. That is going to be Wasian trying to catch up to Priz on the point totals, try and push towards 4 for himself. And then from there, it will just have to be Priz trying to turn things back around, but only a single unit in Priz's hand with that Thousand-Tailed Watcher. So starting to lose out on material on the board. It is another of the key factors in the mirror. It is card advantage, it is point tempo, and it is material. And right now, Wasian has advantage in the material category of those 3, and I would say card advantage as well, right? There's more cards on the board and in hand than what Priz has access to.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing too. You're in it for the long game when you're going into the Kai'Sa match because of the back and forth. Just like what you said, you're not going to be necessarily holding the battlefield for long. You know, if you're lucky to hold it for longer than a turn, you count that as a blessing. At the same time, though, that card draw is going to be such a big difference here. WasianSwag has had the Dr. Mundo in hand the entire time, but because of the card draw that he's been able to maintain, he's been building up a pretty dangerous field at that. So now that the Hextech Ray is coming in and taking out the student, that's going to be slowing him down a little bit, but still, he's going to be able to score up on these 2 points and be able to get 6-4 against Prismaticism.
I mean, going into 6-4 with Watcher in hand is the dream for any Kai'Sa player, especially in the mirror, and it puts the ball heavily in WasianSwag's court for this game 1. Priz definitely far on the back foot and is going to need massive draw off of this Void Seeker to try and make it happen. And I'm not sure I even know what draw can save this situation, just knowing from the caster view of what the hands look like.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's necessarily too much there, but we have known Prismaticism to top deck the card that is needed, even if we're not able to particularly see it. But even still, yes, I think in this case, though, Wasian has been able to draw the cards and build up the board needed to really give himself that good momentum. Yes, Voidseeker is going to be able to come in and, you know, take out the Yordle in this case, but even still, you're going to be able to get the Hopeful into the battlefield. If they then go ahead and try to attack in on that, it can retreat back, you can play the Thousand-Tailed Watcher, and then just take this game. Even if not, you can still go ahead and have a retreat in hand to save something for later as well.
Yep. Now it's Mundo time. Mundo for 15 gets to come down, and that is why he kept it this entire game, knowing if he can get to a spot like this towards the end game, that can close things out.
Yeah, I mean, that really is just an absolute understanding of the matchup. Like, again, you're not keeping an 8-drop in your hand just for fun. At least not at a high level in most card games. But if you know that the game is going to get to this point, if you know that that is one of your win conditions, you know, there's only one in the main deck. We saw that. So if Wasian is like, hey, this is going to win me the game, yeah, it doesn't matter. I will keep it. And as we can see here, it is paying off.
It looks like that was just the scoop coming out of Prismaticism with everything being put away, recognizing that he cannot beat the Mundo at the end, and that's going to be Wasian taking game 1 of this grand finals, 1 game away from closing things out, becoming the champion of Riftlab Trials 2. As we take a look here at the sideboarding, and Blev, start us out. What do you think could come in for the mirror to try and shift things?
Yeah, I think, well, we just saw the Mundo get kept in the opener. I have to imagine that the second Mundo is probably coming in, especially on the Zon Warren's game. If not this game, definitely game 3 if we get to that point. I also think the Acathian Rain seems like a strong one in this matchup. You're able to, a lot of the units line up quite nicely into Acathian Rain. You know, you're able to take out Kai'Sa quite cleanly. You're able to take out a lot of the other units for 1 or 2 pips of Acathian Rain, with the exception of Darius, but again, that can get taken out in other ways. I think on Prismat's side, we talked about it in the last match. I think it's got to be Rain. It's possibly also, I would think, Watcher, and we talked a bit about the Sprite Mothers, and I think we saw those come in as well. So I think potentially a decent number of cards coming in on the side of both players here.
Yeah, and I have to agree with you there. And the biggest thing, too, especially with the Sprite Mothers, is that a lot of units in Kai'Sa in this matchup is going to be that a lot of units are 2 and 1 might. And so Sprite Mother can be that big difference maker on even just getting that point with the readied Sprite that comes in. Again, though, we have seen potentially what Time Warp can do. And even if, I don't know if it necessarily would apply in this matchup, but still could be something to really make a difference here if you manage to get that little bit of momentum to then lock down that game.
All right, we've got some extra news from the off-stream third place match. Lusco Luna able to lock in that third place on his own, very own Kai'Sa deck to be able to get that bronze placement and will get that border. That is the difference between third and fourth, is that border on the Piltover Archive website. Lusco Luna, congratulations on being able to take that, as we do have this grand final. WasianSwag just one victory away from that sweet, sweet playmat.
Yeah, such a sweet playmat. I mean, also the Codex journals are amazing. I'm literally taking notes and holding one as we speak, as we commentate. I got one. Not a sponsor. I bought it myself. It's right here.
Well,
this is
they are a sponsor, but yeah.
Well, they're not a sponsor of me. I bought this with my own
True,
money.
that's fair.
They didn't give this. They didn't give this to me. This is a shill merely out of quality, and yeah. So I really love it. It's a fantastically made product, and I'm literally using it right now on the stream.
There you go. As well.
That's awesome.
A shill for shill's sake.
Shill complete. Zoom back in. Silent. We're going back to the matchups.
Yeah, definitely. And the biggest thing here is, I mean, that's going to be the big thing. WasianSwag has the momentum now into his favor. He has a game under his belt. That alone is a feat against Prismaticism, and so, you know, has a little bit of that ease, if you will. But even still, being in the finals here, there is that pressure. But I mean, hey, 1 out of 2 games, and I think Reaver's Row, especially if you cite in the other Mundo, could be a big difference maker here in game number 2.
I think the Mundo is something you've both hit the nail on the head with, and we mentioned, hey, no Zon Warrens in the first game, which means double Mundo with Zon Warrens is a possibility for Wasian going forward. What I do like for Priz that he has going for him is these Sprite Mothers coming in the sideboard to try and increase the speed that he can score and potentially not even allow for there to be time for Mundo to come down. But we are going to jump straight into this game 2. Prismat, it looks like, has brought in Time Warp as we see that in the opening hand as we get the mulligans, and double Ray Keep for Wasian is a great start to be followed up with 2/2 drops, and this is looking amazing for the player in the lead.
Yeah. And the Time Warp kept in the opener.
Wow. Because, well, and I was thinking about that too, because it's like, if I do decide to go ahead and put a Time Warp, we don't know if he sided 1 in or 2 in this case, but if he decided to only side in the 1, if he puts that onto the bottom, that is it. You do not shuffle your deck in this game. And so it's like, if I put that in the bottom during my mulligan, I'm not going to see it. And so it's more of a risk if I do so I'm going to keep it.
What I love is about this keep is it's actually not risky at all in this scenario. You're playing on Zon Warrens. If you get to a certain point in the game where you recognize that Time Warp is not going to be useful and you need a different card, you ditch it to Warrens and you draw something else. And because of this, I love keeping it, right? If it becomes relevant, great. You just, you have it in your hand forever and you're able to play it exactly as you guys mentioned, right? It would go to the bottom, it never shuffles, you never get a chance to see it. Now you're guaranteed to see it, and if you don't like it and you felt like it was a bad keep, you just rummage it away.
Yes, in general, but also if you need units, Time Warp is not going to help you conquer Zon Warrens.
That's fair. That's true. It's not like he kept it with no units, though. Let's be fair.
No,
to
for sure,
like,
for sure. Yeah. I'm not saying it was a bad keep. I'm not trying to argue against it. It's interesting that it got kept. Yeah, no,
I don't know, but I mean, but Blevins, how do you feel though about 3 Dariuses in hand?
I'm very angry about 3 Dariuses in hand, but also I love it just because I love Darius. But it is a bit awkward. I mean, you want a mix of Dariuses and activators for Darius, not necessarily just Darius all the way down. But at some point, again, if you're playing the game where Time Warp is going to be relevant, having the Darius is also going to be relevant. And again, like Cass mentioned, if you need to, you can always pitch Darius to the Zon Lords.
Like a take on Reavers for Wasian. All his runes up for this turn. Not a lot of immediate strong plays. It does feel kind of like a survivor development turn is the most likely scenario for Wasian this time around. I think there's other options, right? You can deny Priz the ability to utilize his Kaisa Survivor by just playing out the Falling Star now, but as I mentioned earlier, that it's a big expenditure of the Falling Star as a resource to use it for a Kaisa Survivor, and oftentimes it is wanted to be avoided. So we are just going to see Survivor for Wasian in the back row, just deployed.
Yeah, this is.
Yeah, and I think.
Oh, we did it again. No, that was
on me. It's your turn now.
It was on me. It was on me. I apologize, but no, this is just a show of my learning of the Kaisa mirror, because in my mind, I want to cash in that Falling Star, even though it's not efficient. It is a guaranteed kill on my opponent's Kaisa in a Reavers Row match, which is quite. It's quite strong, right? I mean, Kaisa on Reavers Row is one of the strongest things you can be doing, and being able to prevent that seems good, but it is also at the cost of your own Kaisa not being developed. And obviously, both players made the same decision. So I'm gonna cue my instincts as wrong here and default to the Masters.
Yeah, and that's going to be the difficult part here as well. There's a lot of juggling act here, and I mean, you're also seeing the double Hextech Ray coming out as well, and I mean, that's going to be a big difference maker. Whereas now the Kaisa, instead of going the ways of the earth, is only going to be taking 3 damage in this case and being able to conquer and drawing a card. You're looking at the hand size at this point. Prismaticism has 7 cards in hand, 2 Time Warps if you need it, but at the same time, 2 WasianSwags, 4 cards, and that can be a big difference maker in this match.
That was such a blowout that it might just be the game. Huge. Being able to keep the Kaisa alive there, get rid of both the Poro and the Hextech Ray from Wasian. Essentially just a 2-for-1, because you did actually still expend a Ray yourself, but you're also getting the card draw. You're also keeping your Kaisa around on Reavers Row. There's just so many kind of these tangential effects that happened from that 2-for-1 that is so abysmal on the side of WasianSwag to try and come back from. And as you mentioned, the card advantage is there. Survivor's going to be able to pull a little bit of that back on this Conquer. And the question is can Priz convert this hand, right? Because triple Darius double Time Warp doesn't inspire a lot, but we always come back to this Zon Warrens, which is WasianSwag's battlefield, and in this game feels like it will be a bigger benefit to Priz.
Yeah, and we see the Falling Star come out, get the kind of 2-for-1, even though Priz gets to draw another card, but is quite powerful there. I mean, we saw, or you mentioned, Cass, like players are not wanting to take just the 1-for-1 with Falling Star in this matchup when you can get that 2-for-1. I mean, even though they're smaller units, the material is very important. Kaisa is also very important, but there's other ways to deal with her that are potentially more efficient and better overall in the long game, which both players are obviously playing towards with these high cost spells and units still in their decks.
Yeah, and this is one thing I'm curious about too. Double Falling Star in hand for Prismaticism can be a big difference maker. Drawing another card off the Conquer, it being the Cleave as well. All the runes are open. 3 Darius is in hand, 1 Cleave as well. So this could be very dangerous to really try to get things going. But still, I really think that the 2 cards in hand for WasianSwag could be detrimental, compared especially to the 9 cards now on the other side.
Yeah, he's taxing the hand graphic here a little bit as we've got kind of our max capacity. And, Silent, I love that you brought up the double Falling Star, because we are kind of running into this same situation as the last game, where generally you don't want to spend the Falling Star to deal with just a Kaisa Survivor. But when you have 2 copies, it becomes a lot more appealing to be willing to just send that in and deal with Kaisa Survivor. Make sure that Wasian is now taxed on his ability to draw more cards throughout the game while you have this lead. So I honestly, part of me would have rathered see a Falling Star into the Kaisa Survivor here instead of that Poro on the back, because I think that you're so ahead in cards. If you cut off that lifeline that WasianSwag has of Survivor trying to find more, how does he ever come back in this game?
Yeah, and I think that's a good start right there. At least throwing your 1 might unit in to potentially draw a card. Do you want to give your opponent the card, or do you want to just let the battle go, or, you know, back up your Darius? I mean, really, even going in with the Darius and backing him up into the base could be a very big turn as well, especially when next turn you could go ahead and play a, you know, potentially a Darius and a Yordle as well, and that could be 14 just with the Dariuses alone at the ready to move in and take back these battlefields on Prismaticism's side.
Part of me feels like you had to believe him that he had something here. Oh yeah, he did. He was waiting on the trigger. He does get the trigger through and moves back. It does feel like something happened funky with the timing, but Chris does accept the reverse trigger and does move away, and I think that is just correct. I think you have to respect it because there's no reason not to in this spot.
Yes, but also again, like we saw this happen last game where Priz on Reaver's Row presented I mean, it wasn't just throwing a unit away, but it was like, if opponent accepts the trade to happen there on Reavers, like Priz was in a significantly worse spot than they ended up being in, and just made the Stone Cold Bluff attack, gets an extra point, and that ends up paying off, 5 turns later or whatever. It's really hard to put your opponent on the also going to bluff you back, or going to bluff you. But at a certain level, you can use a player's like experience and expertise against them. We're like, oh well, they wouldn't possibly make this play, or maybe they're trying to bluff me. Like, how deep down the rabbit hole are you willing to go? And Priz says, yeah, I'm not playing that game. I'm just going to back out. But I could see a world where they go, no, show me.
Darius going to be the play for WasianSwag here. Just going to dump this out. Does have the one floating for the Ray, but not many good Ray targets. Even casting it into the Pouty Poro feels a bit rough, actually having to pay the power cost, but you will do it in a pinch. I'm curious if we do start to see these Falling Stars deployed from the side of Priz, because he wants to ramp up into this Time Warp and to these Dariuses. But these will deramp if he tries to cast them on the same turn, and yet it does feel like we're starting to get to the point where it feels pretty nice to send those out.
Yeah, I mean, you see a lot of really big threats on the board that you do want to hit out. The last thing that you want, especially, I mean, you're still, of course, no, actually, you have enough to where next turn Thousand Tail Watcher could be coming in from WasianSwag at this point. And it's like, well, I have the double Falling Star in hand. I could take out the Kaisa. I could take out the Darius. And then even at that point, I would be sitting so much better being able to not only go up 2 points, 5-4 as Prismaticism, but also not giving the Thousand Tail as much power as you would if you had those 2 units still out and ready to be used.
You can get a clean clear here with double Falling Star or Stupefy, right? With Darius then taking the Zon Warrens. You go Falling Star, Stupefy, Falling Star. Yeah, no, it would clear out the entire board, which seems pretty good. I mean, it does deramp you quite a bit, but not a bad spot to be in.
Not at all.
Yeah, it's an interesting call out, right? Because you can, but should you? And that is the answer is not clear, right? The answer is really not clear. It feels like it could be completely fine. It could work. You still have these Dariuses to back up. You've got this Lecturing Yordle. You're deramping, but you're deramping, what, 3? That's fine. I think that's okay. You still have plenty of resources going forward. The Time Warp starts to rot a little bit if you deramp 3 here, but you probably want the Time Warp in about 3 turns time, and you can be back to that even with deramping 3. So just going to start with the swing in onto Kaisa, and we'll see from there. This does make sense, though, because you want to ready and move back the Darius.
Yep, exactly.
Regardless of what this play is.
Yep, and you even have enough resources left over to play a Yordle as well, which feels pretty decent.
Yeah, and likewise, though, the thing to also keep in mind is that this is 2 days of competition. These competitors have been playing, 4 rounds now at this point. That is a lot of gameplay on day 2 as well. And so it's okay to take that step back, take a little bit more time, because brain fog does happen the longer that you play in these tournaments. And so it's like, I need to double check these moves, these turns, and really calculate this out so that I can do the best play possible, especially when there is so much on the line when you've made it to the finals.
Instead of trying to go for the board clear, Riz goes for the biggest development turn, using the information gained from the Zon Warrens to then inform the rest of the turn, realizing, okay, I could cast these Falling Stars and DRAM a bunch, or I can fully develop a huge board into Time Warp mana on the following turn.
Yeah, I mean, probably a much better play than the one I lined up. I do think that the play I suggested is still fine, but these are the types of things where it's like Riftbound is not a cut and dry, straightforward game. And even a deck that is very powerful and has seen a lot of results across a wide variety of players, there's a lot of different decisions to be made in pretty much any point in the game, and you can be led to a very different conclusion based on the information you presented, and the different choices you make can lead to a different conclusion, as we're seeing here. Prismat setting themselves up very nicely to potentially finish this game.
Yeah, and that's another thing is, like, I've been playing Kai'Sa. I've been hopping around some decks, but I've locked in on Kai'Sa a lot lately. And there's still, after even playing 25, 30 games with this legend, there's a time where even I'm watching Prismatices and I'm like, oh, that's really smart. And it's like, cool, now I can apply that to my own game as well. There is such a different dynamic with the battlefields in play, with just everything that can come into the strategy of Riftbound, and I love to see how this goes.
I think the consideration here from Wasian: 8 cards in the trash, Mundo in hand, control of a battlefield. Do you just attempt to hold? You'd still have to take the Reaver's Row to get ahead on points, but from there you would have the lead and could attempt to win with a Giga Stack Mundo. Problem being, Priz's board is no slouch.
No. Priz's board is no slouch, and Giga stacking a board is really quite bad to Watcher, as it always is.
Of course. Less bad when it's Mundo, but still bad.
Less bad when it's Mundo, for sure. Still not great. And if you're Giga stacking, if you're only playing the Mundo, I mean, how big is Mundo going to be? 13, right? He's base 5?
Yes.
Yeah, so he'd be 13 when we played him.
Base 6.
You could...
Yeah,
base 6, sorry. Base 14. Or not base 14. He'd be
Base
14 after. Yeah, he's base 14. Potentially up to 15 with the Hextech Ray. I mean, you're probably able to hold for a turn or two, but again, then it's, are you able to take the Reavers? Are you able to, like, is that actually a winning line? I mean, these are the things that WasianSwag is, I would imagine, is currently debating right now, going through these plays, even though there's not a ton of cards in hand. A lot of important decisions to be made.
And Blev, you called out the Watcher, and it is, 15 on Mundo. We look at the board that Priz already has. Watcher does start to just beat it anyway.
Yeah.
Right? It starts to beat Mundo anyway, even though it's very strong. And we are going to see that stack on Reaver's Row. This allows you to react if it is something like Watcher, and at least maybe salvage the Mundo, and then set up to go Watcher plus Mundo to score the last 2 points. And I think that's what WasianSwag is looking for, right? As you see this Watcher in hand for Wasian, this is ideal. Your next turn, you either conquer or hold this because you have the Mundo, and then you try and conquer with your Watcher on the other side, or things go bad and Priz is able to conquer your Reaver's Row, but you can bounce back the Mundo and send it in again once you've Watchered. And that is what he has considered and decided is the best line, and I like this line quite a bit. I do think Priz has game with Time Warp here.
I was gonna
and
say.
he just has to do all the math and find the precise line. But this is a tapped out Kaisa, except for one rune. You can cover all those options. Just has to do the math.
Yep. Stupefy and Ray. Retreat doesn't do anything. So it's how do you beat both of those cards? And it's certainly there. And you have a lot of time to, you'll have that extra turn to, even if you just want to chip away at the Mundo board, like you've got some time if you can do it to actually win with the Time Warp.
Yep. Here's the
Double
warp.
cleave. And there's the warp as well. That's going to be a big difference maker because that's going to immediately, or after he ends his turn, going to start another turn for him. So he's going to be able to then go up to 7 with that, pull it back. And I mean, this is looking really good right now for Prismaticism.
Double cleave just readies this. It's still just the one Ray from the side of WasianSwag, which you can play around with these cleaves to try and make sure that all of your 2s are out of range of Ray. Yep. So that you don't lose any might. Double cleave, you still have the Falling Stars to be played, the Stupefy, another Darius. There's so many ways to get above this 23 might. Plus, we'll say that Priz is specifically playing around Hextech Ray, because why not, right? 23 plus the 3 damage.
Yep.
You can always get around this with this board, unless, I mean, I don't want to do all of the math here, but I'm pretty confident you can.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 17 just on board with a Darius proc.
Right.
Not even factoring in
2
the
cleaves, another Darius. Like, it's not even remotely close.
It's not
to
really
being able
close
to
to
make it.
close. Yeah.
But you still want to be careful because you're like, there's still that chance. I want to double check everything to be safe.
Yeah.
But we got it.
he should play around the Hextech Rays by playing the cleaves on the 2 might units, right?
Just saying I don't care.
Yeah, I don't know if it matters, but I am saying that's the only way that there's even any might available in WasianSwag's hand is if you can clear away one of these. It shouldn't matter whatsoever. That's going to be Priz stacking it up,
Darius's,
giving us a game 3 against WasianSwag, giving us a game 3 for this grand finals, and putting all the marbles on the line for a single Kaisamir.
And I mean, this is where it can be anyone's game. You've seen both these competitors be able to play. You've seen what they're able to do. Each have been able to take a game apiece in this grand finals. And we are about to go into game number 3. But at that same time, we've seen just how powerful Time Warp can be.
Looks like Wasian just wanting to do the math for himself, make sure that this game is over. There's, he's thinking about the Hextech Ray. Okay, Hextech Ray is basically +3 for his side, -2 for opponent's side.
Yeah, it's... Oh, right.
Yeah.
Well,
you get rid of 2, or it's +3 total for your side.
Yep.
Which is not enough.
No, I don't think so.
There's the scoop.
Yep, there's a scoop. I gotta say, I would not choose ever to have Kaisa mirror match as the finals, and I want to see other decks perform. Being here in the Kaisa mirror match finals, I'm low key kind of enjoying it. I'm not gonna lie, I'm liking the back and forth. There's subtle plays that can make huge differences here. I mean, I suggested some vastly inferior plays for both players that neither of them took, and they both ended up winning the respective games that I had a line that they didn't choose to take. So I'm really liking that there's a lot of play in this mirror match, and the skill expression is really being seen here in the grand finals of Riftlab Trials 2.
Yeah, I agree with you there, and you can see just how much the calculation of plays can make that big difference. That one little mistake, if we happen to do a play that maybe I suggested or Blevin suggested, that could have been the thing that shifted the momentum into WasianSwag's favor, And so it's like, whoa, let's take a moment here and see what can happen. And both these players have been able to do so. And man, I am excited to see what's coming next.
Yeah, the Time Warp actually paying dividends for Priz, keeping it in the hand. Yeah, he found another one. He ended up ditching one to Zon Warrens anyway. But the card opened up this play line that invalidated the Mundo quite heavily. And going from Wasian having this great line with his opponent at 5 points, knowing, hey, you can't win this turn, I can always retreat my Mundo if you are able to overcome this massive amount of might on Reaver's Row and follow it up with my own Thousand-Tailed Watcher to end the game. I mean, he drew up the plan perfectly, and the only card that really invalidated it was Time Warp, and Priz had been holding on to it the entire game. There may have been other combinations of cards that could beat that line, but Time Warp invalidated it.
And Silent Knight, did I not say it last round? The hero Time Warp coming in as one of those unique effects, being able to steal a game that otherwise may not have been winnable. You know, I make a lot of bold predictions, and we can forget the ones that were wrong, but the ones that were right, we highlight those and say that I am actually a savant.
And now we go into our third game, our final game of this Riftlab Trials. It's going to be Targon's Peak and Dreaming Tree for the mirror. Prismaticism versus WasianSwag. We've got our mulligans in. Mundo making his third appearance, and Time Warp rearing its ugly head once again for Prismaticism.
Well, and here's the interesting thing as well. You look, what other units do they have at this point? Luckily, you know, Prismaticism does have a Yordle in this case. That helps out. But there are no other units on WasianSwag's side. He can't get out a 2-drop. He can get the Kaisa out, potentially, you know. But that's going to be a following turn. And that is going to be very interesting to see how that alone will impact this Game 3.
Certainly going to feel like a different game to the ones previous year. A little bit slower on both sides.
It's a bit of a brick on the side of WasianSwag to kick things off. Retreat, Time Warp, and Mundo all dead cards for the first, 6 turns of the game for the most
50
part.
50 turns of the game.
But does find the Falling Star and the Void Seeker to at least buy a little time. And I think this Ravenbloom student as that final top deck is massive, very necessary pickup for the side of WasianSwag. And the nice thing about Kaisa is you can kind of always escape a brick, or at least for the most part escape a brick by just playing Survivor and going from there. And that is just going to be the case, but this is going to give some room because Prismat had an early play with this Yordle. He gets to go and conquer Targon's Peak and start doing the really unfair things, right? We're playing Survivor and then still having 3 runes available.
Yeah, Void Seeker is such a blowout here. Now, granted, it is going to be retreated, which is nice, but still, that's just not the play you want to have to make.
Yeah, that's going to be slowing you down a lot. And I mean, on top of that, Prismaticism is going to be able to replace itself as well, being able to draw one off of the Void Seeker. And that is going to be a big difference maker. Now, there's still a lot of thought process on this course of action. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this response will come from WasianSwag here.
Yeah, I mean, really just has to be the retreat. You can't afford to give up Survivor at this point. Just already far behind because you missed the 2-drop early on, had to skip a turn, and because Priz has not skipped a turn, you're just strictly behind. I mean, that's just how it is. Having some good late game threats is amazing, but you really need to keep this Survivor alive and ready to go for future turns, being able to still accelerate her once again later in this game.
Yeah, and I mean, and you even could go in and accelerate her right now and maybe even attack back in. But I mean, we'll see what happens because you're at least able to then replace the rune that you would be recycling with playing her again. But again, that feels like you're taking a step back and then taking half a step forward and trying to get back into this momentum shift. And it's going to be interesting to see on how that's going to be going for WasianSwag.
Yeah, I mean, notably, if you go for the accelerate route, even getting Targons, you won't have the runes back to be able to play the Void Seeker. And I think that's the main reason that we won't see that line from Wasian, even though I do think if there was one more rune up, I actually think that line is incredibly strong. And in fact, maybe one of the most likely things for Wasian to do would be to replay. It's just 1 rune short.
So yeah, looks like we are going to be going with the student instead and seeing how that will play out here. 3 runes remain on the side of WasianSwag. So some options here as the pass goes over to Prismaticism to see how he is going to be responding with 7 cards in hand.
Again, this is a small thing, but we know that the line that you laid out feels quite powerful, with the exception of we know that Void Seeker is in the hand of WasianSwag. They're going to want to leave that up. That's what they ended up doing. That's also a tell for Prismat, who doesn't actually know that Void Seeker is in hand, but went for a much weaker line and is representing Void Seeker. So if I'm Prismat, if I have my pen and pad, I'm writing down Void Seeker on that piece of paper because it is a pretty heavy tell that Void Seeker is in their hand. And we see Kaisa stays back. No, I'm not playing into the Void Seeker if I don't have to.
Yeah, great punish. He says, okay, you want to take an anemic turn and play a Raven Bloom and pass with 3 runes open? All right, I'll just dump my entire hand onto the board and we'll go from there, right? I think this is exactly how he's supposed to play that spot. He has the point lead. He's not pressured. He doesn't have to start moving in yet. He can wait and let, Wasian kind of make a few plays and see exactly where the board stands from there. And instead, he just gets to put all these Pouty Poros out, which is going to tax the resources of WasianSwag as this game goes forward. And then you start to look for the card draw. I will note, though, the hand strength currently very much in WasianSwag's favor just due to kind of some of the bigger, more powerful units. But because the board is so heavily in Prismat's favor and Mundo can't come online because Wasian had no early plays, it ends up really evening out, and it just comes down to this board strength lead and this huge, point and board lead from Priz.
Yeah, exactly. And on top of that, too, that point lead is going to be paramount here. You see that I love how you pointed out that he took that step back, rebuilt his board, forcing also even on top of that the falling star here. And it's like, what do you even want to take out at this point? You have the momentum as Prismaticism. You are forcing WasianSwag to force his hand. And again, this Mundo, while very great in certain situations, when you only have 1 card in your discard now going in on turn 4, 5, 6, it's like, this is really going to start hurting.
Oh, wow, what a top deck. So this Falling Star ends up taking out 2 of the smaller units, including the Sentry. And Priz gets to find a retreat off the top. He was worried about Void Seeker. He has a read that there's a Void Seeker in hand. Now he gets to send in his Kaisa for free at any point, bait that Void Seeker, and just pull her back. I don't know what that cleave is for.
Because that's the interesting part. Because it is adding.
Did he think he was on Dreaming Tree?
They just realized that they were on the wrong. I saw the eyes open up. And
I thought he was on Dreaming Tree.
Yeah, that they thought they were on the other.
That is tough.
I mean, for what it's worth, similar color palette. I don't blame anyone for confusing the battlefields. Is it just me, or do some of the battlefields just look similar, even though when you actually look at them, they don't look similar at all, and there's nothing similar about them in any way, but they really do look similar sometimes.
Well, and again, it can come back to that long time of playing where you are spending a lot of time playing game after game after game. There's not a lot of breaks here, and sometimes it's like, oh, I didn't mean to do that, but I've already let go. It's committed. Dang it. That sucks.
Yeah, super clean clear available with the Stupefy Falling Star. Get rid of the 2, end the 4. Exactly what you're looking for. We've mentioned it a few times. The Falling Star into Kaisa Survivor, kind of the way it plays into each other. You don't want to just cast it 1-for-1 trade. If you can find the Stupefy and kind of do this 2-for-2 setup there, but you get to draw the extra card with Stupefy, that's a lot better. And that retreat that was drawn earlier, this is that payoff. You get to send it in for free to Dreaming Tree, draw an extra card. It's crazy.
Well, and then likewise, you see what they drew on the other side with WasianSwag, drawing a 1 might unit, not the thing you necessarily want to see, especially when your board is empty. That's going to be very difficult for WasianSwag.
Yeah, could potentially accelerate Kaisa 2, 4, 5. Yeah, accelerate Kaisa, draw the card, still have Smokescreen up as well. Seems really strong, and still have if you do cast a smoke screen, you'll be 1 off, I believe. But if you don't cast a smoke screen, you will have Time Warp mana next turn.
Well, and here's the thing, too. You can go ahead and take both, go up to 5 the following turn. And I mean, and you still have a Time Warp in hand, whereas your opponent is still kind of trying to get ahead. Now, of course, we do see the destruction of the unit as I try to make that point. So that sucks. But outside of that, there is still a good point advantage that is at the hands of Prismaticism as he goes up now 3-1.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the runes as well, right? These Poros have done not a ton of work, but they did a little work at the end. There's so much removal that's had to be cast by WasianSwag. And now at this point, you know, Priz just having this massive rune lead as it comes back over and able to get that Kaisa in, go up to 4. As you mentioned, right, at 4, able to start moving towards 6, towards 8 over these next few turns. And the Time Warp is well within reach, right? This is at 8 runes, able to go to 10 on the next turn. If you play double Darius, they both come in ready. You can send them in, go up to 6, and you're still going to ramp back into Time Warp on the following turn.
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty solid spot for Prismat here.
And that's one of the strongest parts about Kaisa in general, is that you can just hit the ground running. Some of your units, like the Darius, doesn't necessarily have Accelerate, but still, you have a great way to be able to give them Accelerate. And so, you know, you play your Kaisa out, it can come in and move and get a point real quick. Darius can do the same thing, and you're seeing how big of a difference that can be made, where Prismaticism is able to find those kinds of answers to get the points back. Even if he didn't have those, Sprite Mother would even be making a pretty big impact at this point as well. But he has the answers, and it's going to be paying dividends as we get ever closer to the end of game number 3.
In fact, the Sprite Mother is a nice call out. I think it's better than double Darius. Sprite Mother, establish Darius at home, go score a point with the Sprite. The next turn, rip the Time Warp, and then your next turn that you get after Time Warping, you've still got a Darius in hand to get ready to go.
Yep, and it's like the options are out there, and Prismaticism is looking good right now. I mean, you see that one Might unit out there, and you see what what Prismaticism has in hand, and you're like, all right, here we go. Now we are seeing the Yordle being activated here, going ahead and drawing a card off of that as well. Then the Darius coming and swinging into Targon's Peak, being able to ready 2 runes at the end of the turn. That's going to be a big play, as well as bringing the Poro back into base to make it fight another day.
Still have the smoke screen to protect the Darius from combat. There's not really a good way to kill Darius with a spell, so this is really strong spot for Prismat here. Again, we're just presenting as much power onto the board, getting to that key 6 points, and then unless WasianSwag has a monumental turn here, Time Warp is going to put it away again.
Yeah, and
Rapidly
that's the thing.
approaching the end of the game. Mundo can come down to try and hold this out. I don't know if it's happening, Silent.
I don't know if it is either, because yeah, it feels good. Like, hey, I'm walking down this battlefield. Mundo's at 14, but when you pass, I go up to 7. Here's Time Warp.
Oh, right.
Cool. Good game.
There's the warp, and that's the game. Prismaticism is your champion of Riftlab's Trials 2, taking down WasianSwag in the mirror. And Prismat, I think at this point, has kind of proven to be the undisputed champ of online Riftbound prior to release.
No, I think you're exactly right about that. The track record speaks for itself. Prismaticism has been able to dominate the online world, and you're able to see exactly why he is able to do that. Look at how he is able not only to play Kaisa, we saw him in the clashes playing Teemo, playing Annie, and he was able to dominate with each and every deck. Now, he did bring Kaisa, but man, he was able to show he knows this game so incredibly well and to bring it to us.
And look what he won for this victory. The winner's playmat. Look out for Prismat at Vegas, at Georgia, I think he's going to Vegas, not Georgia, but at Vegas or any of the other live events, sporting this thing, and you'll know when you sit across from it that you're in trouble, because he is the king. He is the minion with the crown, as Prismat able to take this thing down.
Absolutely stunning performance from Prismat. I think, we've obviously been covering Riftbound since the beginning of play, since before all the cards were revealed, since we only had the trial decks, right? We've seen the evolution of play. We've seen high-level play from the beginning, but to me, this is a line in the sand for me. This was a level up in terms of seeing high-level play. We're seeing small decisions being made and really paying off. We're seeing concrete game plans. I mean, Prismat is the champion of think, got it, execute with flawless execution there, thinking over all the different lines of play and then following through, getting to that point. We're seeing planning out multiple turns in advance, playing head games with the opponent with bluff attacks and all that. I mean, these are all the things, the hallmarks of really, really high tier play in card games, and you love to see it this early from a player that at least Cass and I have been covering for a long time in other games.
I've known him forever.
We've known Priz for a long time. Cass, you've known Priz even longer than I have, but it's just been a treat to see him come in to Riftbound and be an early and instant success.
All right, well, we're moving towards wrapping up here, but I want to get final thoughts from both of our casters. Blev, you just finished a statement, so we'll go Silent Knight. Any final words before we sign this thing off?
No, I just got to really say, I love that us as a community have been able to come together and bring these tournaments to you. I mean, the enthusiasm that everyone in English, at least in the English release, since we've had to wait till October, have been able to come together and just want to play this game so bad that we make these online tournaments and things like that. So much so that we're able to even help define the meta before the game even releases in America. Great job there, Prismaticism, at taking this game and really elevating it to the next level, showing us what Kaisa is capable of. And I am so excited to see what is to come as we get ever closer to this game releasing on October 31st.
Blev, anything left?
Oh, I've always got a little bit something left, but I just want to, again, shout out to Prismat. We saw really masterful play. We saw them really planning out the ability to say, hey, I'm here at 4 points. I'm going to get to 6 points, then get that final 8th point, otherwise known as the Winning Point, which is a podcast that both myself and Casanova are on Turn 'em Sideways, as well as Charmer and Pastry Time. You knew I wasn't going to make it out without shilling one more time. But you got to check it out. But again, thank you so much to Riftlab. Thanks you to both of you for this awesome, amazing event. Thanks to everyone who played and to the viewers at home as well. This was super fun. I mean, you love to see it.
Yeah, I want to say there's so many people that worked on this product, and I think this is so amazing. Shout outs hugely to Jacob for putting this all together, and the Riftlab team overall. Shout outs to Piltover Archive for being a big partner alongside that. Codex Journals for putting those all in together. Turn 'em Sideways for doing the secondary stream. We're trying to do some alternate lobbies over there. And then I'm going to try and do this because there's so many casters that have contributed to this, but for Counterfeit, Initialize, Anu, Silent Knight, Orbital, Jibs, Bleffins, Charmer, Dalton, myself, and everyone else who has ever touched this product, thank you all so much for watching. You've been amazing, and we'll see you on the next one.